Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Aurora's edge and stared at the massive alien ship floating in space ahead of them. The ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It looked like a giant crystal that sparkled with strange lights. Jake felt his stomach twist with nerves. "Sir, they're sending us another message," said Lieutenant Amy Carter from her station. She was young but smart, and Jake trusted her completely. "Put it through," Jake said. A voice filled the bridge. It sounded like wind blowing through metal. "Pipes, human vessel, you will dock at Port 7. Your testing begins in 1 standard galactic hour. Do not be late." Dr. Lisa Hayes walked up to Jake. She was Earth's best scientist when it came to studying alien life. Her hands shook a little as she held her tablet. "Jake, I've been reading their files again. No species has ever failed all their tests. Ever." "Well," said Commander Ryan Cole with a grin, "humans like to be first at something." Ryan was their military expert. He always made jokes when things got scary. Jake knew Ryan was worried too, but the man never showed it. That's what made him a good soldier. The Aurora's edge moved slowly toward the alien ship. Jake watched through the window as they got closer. He could see other ships docked at different ports. Each one looked completely different. Some were made of metal that seemed to flow like water. Others looked like they were grown instead of built. "Look at all those ships," Amy whispered. "How many alien races are there?" "The Galactic Council represents over 3,000 species," Lisa said. "They've been testing new civilizations for 10,000 years. Jake felt a chill run down his back. 10,000 years. Humans had only learned to fly a little over 100 years ago. How could they compete with aliens who had been traveling space for so long? The docking was smooth. Jake was proud of his crew. They might not have fancy alien technology, but they knew how to fly their ship well. As soon as they locked into place, Jake heard footsteps in the corridor. The aliens were coming aboard. That the first alien through the door made Jake take a step back. It was tall and thin, with skin that looked like purple glass. Its eyes glowed with white light. When it spoke, Jake could see that it had no mouth. The voice came from somewhere inside its chest. "I am Advisor Zeltroff of the Vorthix species. I will oversee your evaluation." The alien looked around the bridge with what seemed like disgust. "Your technology is very primitive." Jake tried to stay calm. "We're honored to meet you, Advisor. We're ready for whatever tests you have." Zeltroff made a sound like breaking glass. Jake realized it was laughing. "Ready? Human, your species cannot possibly be ready. But we will proceed anyway. Follow me." Jake, Lisa, and Ryan followed the alien through a long tunnel that connected their ship to the console vessel. The walls were covered in symbols that hurt Jake's eyes to look at. The air tasted strange, like metal and flowers mixed together. Entered a huge room filled with other aliens. Jake saw creatures with tentacles instead of arms, beings made of what looked like living rock, and things that seemed to be made of pure energy floating in the air. All of them turned to stare at the humans. "These are the humans," Zeltroff announced. "Today we test their worthiness to join galactic society." Another alien stepped forward. This one was short and round, with 6 arms and bright blue skin. "I am Speaker Vex of the Nexari Collective. We will begin with the technology assessment." They led Jake to a table covered with alien devices. "Identify the purpose of these tools and demonstrate your understanding of their function." Vex said. Jake picked up something that looked like a metal flower. He turned it over in his hands, but he had no idea what it was supposed to do. The other devices were just as mysterious. Some hummed with energy. Others felt warm to the touch. One seemed to be vibrating so fast it was almost invisible. "I'm sorry," Jake said finally. "I don't recognize any of these." The aliens made various sounds. Some sounded like disappointment. Others sounded like they were laughing. Zeltaroth wrote something on a device that appeared in his hand. Technology assessment. Complete failure, he announced. Next, they tested Ryan's military knowledge. They showed him star maps and asked him to plan attacks on different worlds. Ryan studied the maps carefully, but the strategy made no sense to him. The aliens seemed to follow rules that humans would never think of. Your tactics are chaotic and unpredictable, said a robot-like alien. You show no understanding of proper warfare. Military assessment. Complete failure, Zeltaroth said again. Lisa's turn was even worse. They asked her to solve scientific problems that required knowledge humans didn't have. She tried her best, but every answer was wrong. The aliens shook their heads and made clicking sounds. Scientific method, completely inadequate, announced an alien that looked like it was made of living crystal. The final test was about human society. They asked Jake questions about how Earth was governed, how humans made decisions, and how they solved problems. Jake answered honestly, explaining about different countries, different laws, and how humans often disagreed with each other. The aliens looked shocked. Your species has no unity, Zeltaroth said. You fight among yourselves constantly. How do you expect to work with other civilizations when you cannot even work with your own kind? Social structure assessment. Catastrophic failure, he announced. To the room. Jake felt his heart sink. They had failed everything, every single test. He looked at Lisa and Ryan. Both of them looked as defeated as he felt. Zeltaroth stood up tall. His purple skin seemed to glow brighter. In 10,000 years of testing, no species has ever scored so poorly. Humans are classified as developmental tier 0. You are banned from galactic society until you can achieve basic competency. What does that mean? Jake asked. It means you go home and do not come back, Zeltaroth said coldly. Perhaps in a few thousand years, your species will be ready to try again. The trip back to Earth was quiet. Jake sat in his captain's chair and stared at the stars. Somewhere out there, thousands of alien civilizations were working together, sharing knowledge, exploring the galaxy. And humans were locked out of all of it. Jake, Lisa said softly, there's something that bothers me about those tests. What do you mean? They didn't test creativity. They didn't test our ability to adapt or learn new things. They only tested whether we already knew what they knew. Ryan nodded. It's like they wanted us to fail. Jake thought about that as Earth grew larger in their window. Maybe Ryan was right. Maybe the tests weren't fair. But it didn't matter now. They had failed, and humanity would have to live with the consequences. As the Aurora's edge entered Earth's atmosphere, Jake made a promise to himself. Somehow, some way, humans would prove they belonged among the stars. They just had to figure out how. Dr. Lisa Hayes rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the computer screen again. She had been working for 16 hours straight, but she couldn't stop now. Something was hidden in the alien data, and she was close to finding it. 6 months had passed since the Aurora's edge returned to Earth with the terrible news. The whole world had been angry at first. Some people blamed Jake and his crew. Others wanted to build weapons and attack the aliens. But President Amy Carter had made a smart choice. Instead of fighting or giving up, she told Lisa to study everything they could about the Galactic Council. Any luck? Asked Dr. Greg Palmer as he walked into the lab. Greg was a math genius who could find patterns in numbers that most people couldn't even see. He carried 2 cups of coffee and handed one to Lisa. Maybe, Lisa said. Look at this. She pointed to a chart on her screen. It showed thousands of alien species and their test scores. Most of the species had high scores in at least one area. Many had perfect scores. See the Zephyrians? Perfect technology score. The Mindari? Perfect social structure. The Celestials? Perfect in everything. Lisa scrolled down the list. But look what happened to them after they joined the council. Greg leaned closer to the screen. Their progress. Reports show ... nothing. No new discoveries. No new technology. No growth at all. Exactly. It's like they stopped trying to improve once they passed the tests. Rebecca Stone walked over from her workstation. She was a systems analyst who used to work for the military. Rebecca was good at finding connections that other people missed. I've been looking at the Council's historical records, Rebecca said. The species that are doing the best now, the ones that are still growing and learning, all have something in common. What? Lisa asked. They all did poorly on the original tests. Lisa felt her heart skip a beat. What do you mean? Rebecca pulled up another chart. Look at the Wanderers. They're the galaxy's best explorers now. But when they were first tested, they failed the technology assessment. The Builders create the most amazing structures in the galaxy, but they failed the social structure test. The Innovators invent new things every year, but they failed the scientific method test. Greg sat down hard in a chair. That's impossible. The tests are supposed to measure how advanced a species is. Are they? Lisa asked. She felt excited. Now, like she was about to solve a big puzzle. What if the tests measure something else? What if they measure how well a species fits into the Council's way of doing things? Before anyone could answer, Commander Ryan Cole walked into the lab. He looked tired but excited. Ryan had been leading secret missions to watch the aliens without them knowing. It was dangerous work, but someone had to do it. Lisa, you need to hear this, Ryan said. Our spy missions have been more successful than we hoped. What did you find? Ryan grinned. Our technology is terrible compared to theirs, right? That's what they told us. Right. Wrong. Our stealth systems work perfectly against their sensors. They can't detect our ships when we use basic electromagnetic jammers and simple camouflage. Rebecca looked confused. But their technology is so much more advanced than ours. That's the problem, Ryan said. Their sensors are designed to detect advanced technology. They look for energy signatures and exotic materials. Our primitive systems don't register as threats because they're too simple. Lisa felt pieces of the puzzle clicking together in her mind. It's like using a microscope to look for elephants. The tool is too sophisticated for what you're trying to find. Greg was already typing on his computer. Numbers filled the screen as he ran calculations. If Ryan is right about the technology gap, and Rebecca is right about the successful species having low test scores, then ... He stopped typing and stared at his screen. What is it? Lisa asked. I ran probability models on the Council's data. Species with chaotic scores like ours have a 93% chance of major innovation within their first century of space travel. Species with perfect scores have only a 12% chance. The room went quiet. Lisa felt like the world had just turned upside down. The tests don't measure potential, she said slowly. They measure conformity. Rebecca nodded. The Council doesn't want creative species. They want species that will follow their rules and not cause trouble. Ryan laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. So they're keeping out the species that could actually help the galaxy grow. Lisa turned back to her computer and started pulling up more data. Greg, I need you to run numbers on extinct civilizations. Rebecca, look for any records of species that disappeared after testing. Ryan, we need more intelligence on how the Council really operates. Over the next few weeks, the pattern became clearer and more disturbing. Species that showed too much creativity or independence often had their homeworlds lost due to administrative errors. Navigation data would be corrupted. Supply shipments would be delayed until colonies starved. Sometimes entire star systems would simply vanish from official records. It's not just bias, Lisa told the team during one of their late-night meetings. It's deliberate suppression. Greg had dark circles under his eyes from working too much, but his numbers were solid. I found records of 47 species that passed what I call the adaptive threshold. Species that scored low on the tests, but showed high potential for growth and innovation. What happened to them? Rebecca asked. They're all listed as extinct or missing. Ryan slammed his fist on the table. This is genocide. They're killing off any species that might challenge their power. Lisa nodded grimly. And they almost got us too. If we had scored just a little bit better, if we had shown just a little more potential during the tests, we might have disappeared as well. So what do we do now? Rebecca asked. Lisa looked around at her team. These three people had become her closest friends over the past months. They had worked together, worried together, and discovered something that could change the entire galaxy. We prove that we're smarter than they think we are, Lisa said. And we do it in a way they'll never see coming. Meanwhile, Jake Morrison was having his own meetings. The former captain was now Admiral Morrison, in charge of Earth's space defense. He sat in a secure room with President Carter and several military leaders. The aliens think we're primitive, Jake said. Let's use that against them. What do you mean? Asked General Patricia Williams. They don't consider our technology a threat. That means they're not watching for it. We can build defenses right under their noses, and they'll never notice. President Carter leaned forward. What kind of defenses? Simple ones. Kinetic weapons that fire chunks of metal really fast. Chemical explosives. Basic energy shields. Nothing fancy, but effective. Will it work against their advanced weapons? General Williams asked. Ryan had joined the meeting via video link from his latest spy mission. Their weapons are designed to penetrate sophisticated shields and armor, but they're not optimized for stopping simple kinetic impacts or basic explosive charges. Jake smiled. It's like they're wearing bulletproof vests, but we're throwing rocks at them. The vest doesn't help against something it wasn't designed to stop. Over the following months, Earth began to prepare. In secret factories around the world, humans built simple but effective weapons and defenses. They were careful to use only basic technology that the aliens would ignore. At the same time, Lisa's team continued their research. They discovered that the galaxy's greatest civilizations had all started as failures by Council standards. The beings that built the most beautiful art had been called aesthetically primitive. The species that made the best music had been labeled acoustically chaotic. The civilizations that created the most fair and peaceful societies had been dismissed as politically unstable. The Council isn't just wrong, Lisa told President Carter during a briefing. They're backwards. They've created a system that rewards mediocrity and punishes excellence. President Carter was quiet for a long moment. Can we prove this? Yes, Lisa said. But not in a way they'll accept easily. The Council has been using this system for 10,000 years. They're not going to admit they've been wrong the whole time. Then what do you suggest? Lisa looked at her notes. She had been thinking about this for weeks. We request a re-evaluation. We tell them we've improved since the last test. But we haven't improved in the ways they measure improvement. Exactly, Lisa said with a smile. That's the point. Jake joined the conversation via video from the lunar defense station he was building. What are you planning, Lisa? We're going to take their test again. But this time, we're not going to try to pass it. We're going to prove that the test itself is broken. President Carter raised an eyebrow. That sounds incredibly dangerous. It is, Lisa admitted. If we're wrong, or if we miscalculate, they might decide we're too dangerous to let live. But if we're right, we could free not just humanity, but every creative species in the galaxy. The room was silent as everyone thought about the implications. "How long do you need to prepare?" President Carter asked finally. Lisa looked at Greg, Rebecca, and Ryan on the video screens. 6 more months, maybe less. Do it, the president said. And God help us all. Agent Kelly Brooks moved through the shadows of the alien space station like a ghost. She had been a spy for the CIA before first contact, and now she used those same skills to gather intelligence on the Galactic Council. Her mission tonight was more dangerous than any she had ever attempted. Kelly wore a suit that made her nearly invisible to most sensors. It was crude compared to alien technology, but like everything else humans made, it worked because the aliens didn't expect it. They looked for sophisticated cloaking devices, not simple light-bending fabric and basic heat dampeners. She pressed herself against a wall as 2 Vorthic guards walked past. Their purple crystal bodies glowed softly in the dim light. Kelly held her breath until they were gone and continued toward her target. The Council's main data center was protected by layers of security that would stop any advanced civilization. Energy barriers that could detect quantum signatures. Biometric scanners that read DNA patterns. Psychic dampeners that blocked mental intrusion. But they had no protection against an old-fashioned lockpick and some basic computer hacking. Kelly reached the data center and studied the door. It looked impossible to open, covered in alien symbols and glowing with energy. But she had learned something important about alien technology over the past year. The more advanced it looked, the more likely it was to have simple weaknesses. Pulled out a small device that Greg Palmer had built for her. It looked like a regular Earth tablet, but it could interface with alien computer systems by pretending to be a maintenance tool. The aliens never suspected that humans could build something so simple yet effective. The door opened with a soft whisper. Kelly slipped inside and found herself in a room filled with floating data crystals. Each crystal contained the complete history of an alien civilization. There were thousands of them, representing millions of years of galactic history. Kelly connected her tablet to the central system and began downloading files. She wasn't looking for random information. She had a specific target, the classified records of species. That had been eliminated after testing. What she found made her blood run cold. The files showed a pattern of systematic murder that went back thousands of years. Species that scored too low on the tests, but showed signs of rapid development, were marked for administrative review. Within a few years, their worlds would suffer mysterious accidents. Solar flares would destroy their cities. Asteroid impacts would devastate their planets. Space plagues would wipe out their populations. But the worst discovery was yet to come. Kelly found personal communications between council members, messages they thought no one else would ever see. The communications were between Advisor Zeltaroth and other Vorthic leaders. The humans showed dangerous signs of adaptive intelligence. Zeltaroth had written in one message, "Their failure scores are the highest we have recorded in millennia. If they are allowed to develop naturally, they could pose a significant threat to established order within 2 centuries. Another message was even more direct. Recommend immediate sterilization of Sol System. Make it appear natural. Perhaps a gamma ray burst from nearby star. Kelly's hands shook as she read more messages. The Council wasn't just suppressing creative species. They were planning to commit genocide against humanity. She found records of other species that had suffered the same fate. The Dreamers had been a race of incredible artists and inventors. Their homeworld had been destroyed by a natural black hole that appeared without warning. The Seekers had been explorers who found new ways to travel between stars. They had died in a plague that only affected their specific biology. Dozens of civilizations had been murdered. Because they dared to think differently, Kelly copied everything she could carry and prepared to leave. But as she turned to go, she heard voices in the corridor outside. Vorthic guards were coming back early from their patrol. She hid behind one of the data crystals and listened as they entered the room. Sensor readings show minor fluctuations in the data core, one guard said. Investigate, ordered the other. Kelly held perfectly still as the guards searched the room. Their energy scanners swept back and forth, looking for any sign of intrusion. But her simple hiding place behind a crystal was beneath their notice. They were looking for sophisticated infiltration technology, not a human crouched in the shadows. After several tense minutes, the guards left. Kelly waited another hour before making her escape. The trip back to her ship was the longest of her life. Every shadow could hide an enemy. Every sound could mean discovery. But her primitive technology kept her invisible to their advanced sensors. She finally reached her ship. Kelly immediately sent a coded message to Earth. Within hours, Lisa Hayes and her team were analyzing the stolen data. "This is worse than we thought," Lisa said as she read through the files. "They're not just biased against creative species. They're actively hunting them down." Greg looked sick as he read the elimination lists. 47 species over the past 5,000 years. All killed because they showed potential for growth. Rebecca was studying the communication patterns. The orders are always coming from the same source. The Vorthic leadership. They're the ones driving this policy. Ryan joined them by video from his latest reconnaissance mission. It makes sense from their perspective. The Vorthic have been the dominant species in the Council for 8,000 years. Any species that might challenge their power has to be eliminated. But why haven't the other Council members stopped them? Lisa asked. Kelly answered from her ship as she flew back toward Earth. Because they don't know. The Vorthic have been very careful to make the eliminations look natural. The other species think these civilizations just got unlucky. Lisa felt anger building in her chest. All those species, all those billions of lives, snuffed out because they dared to be different. We have to expose this. How? Greg asked. If we reveal what we know, they'll just eliminate us too. Not if we do it right, Lisa said. She was forming a plan, but it was risky. Kelly, how long before the Vorthic realized their files have been accessed? Their security system is designed to detect advanced intrusion techniques. My primitive methods might go unnoticed for weeks, maybe months. That might be enough time. Lisa turned to her team. We're going to request that reevaluation. But we're not just going to prove the tests are wrong. We're going to expose the entire conspiracy. Rebecca looked worried. Lisa, if we're wrong about this ... then humanity dies anyway, Lisa said grimly. The files Kelly found show that we're already marked for elimination. Our only chance is to expose the truth before they can act. Over. The following weeks, the team worked frantically to prepare their case. They analyzed thousands of years of data, looking for patterns and evidence. Greg created mathematical models that proved the connection between low test scores and long-term success. Rebecca mapped the communication networks that the Vorthic used to coordinate their genocidal activities. Meanwhile, Jake continued building Earth's defenses. The stolen intelligence had revealed the types of weapons the Council would use if they decided to eliminate humanity. Jake's engineers designed countermeasures using the simplest technology possible. Kinetic barriers made from steel and concrete, Jake explained to his staff. Chemical explosive mines that won't show up on energy. Scans, mass drivers that fire chunks of asteroid rock at relativistic speeds. Will it be enough? Asked Colonel Steve Martinez, Jake's second in command. Against their advanced weapons? Probably not. But it might buy us enough time to get our message out to the galaxy. The breakthrough came when Lisa realized that the evidence they had gathered could be presented as part of the re-evaluation process. Instead of just taking the tests again, they would present their own analysis of galactic civilization development. "We'll request permission to present new research on species advancement patterns," Lisa told President Carter. "It's a legitimate scientific presentation. The Council can't refuse without looking suspicious." "And then you'll spring the trap?" "Then we'll show them what we really found. The genocide, the conspiracy, the systematic suppression of creative species. All backed up with their own data." President Carter was quiet for a long moment. "The risk is enormous. If this backfires, they could sterilize our entire solar system." "They're planning to do that anyway," Lisa said. "Kelly's intelligence makes that clear. Our only choice is to act first." The president nodded slowly. "Do it. Send the request for re-evaluation." Lisa sent the message that same day. The response came back within hours. Advisor Zeltaroff himself would oversee the new assessment. He was bringing representatives from all the major galactic powers to witness humanity's continued failure. What he didn't know was that Lisa and her team had spent months preparing for this moment. They had evidence that could bring down the entire Council power structure. They had proof of genocide that would shock every species in the galaxy. But they also knew that the moment they revealed their findings, the Vorthik would try to silence them permanently. The coming confrontation would determine not just humanity's fate, but the future of every creative species in the galaxy. Lisa looked up at the stars through her laboratory window. Somewhere out there, alien civilizations were living in fear, following rules designed to keep them weak and controlled. Soon, she hoped, they would. The council chamber was packed with representatives from across the galaxy. Admiral Jake Morrison stood at the entrance and watched as dozens of alien species filed in to witness humanity's second evaluation. Some floated through the air like living clouds. Others walked on multiple legs or slithered across the floor. All of them expected to see humans fail again. Advisor Zeltaroff stood at the center of the chamber, his purple crystal body glowing brighter than usual. "Welcome, representatives of the Galactic Council. Today we will observe the second evaluation of the species known as humans. Their previous performance was the worst in recorded history." Laughter echoed through the chamber. Some aliens made clicking sounds. Others hummed in harmony. All of them seemed amused by the idea that humans thought they could improve in just 1 year. "However," Zeltaroff continued, "these creatures claim to have made significant advances. We shall see if this is true." Dr. Lisa Hayes walked into the chamber carrying a simple briefcase. She wore a plain blue dress that looked primitive compared to the flowing energy garments worn by other species. Behind her came Dr. Greg Palmer and Rebecca Stone, both carrying basic Earth computers. "Before we begin the standard tests," Lisa said in a clear voice, "we request permission to present new research findings on galactic civilization development patterns." Zeltaroff's glow dimmed slightly. "That is not part of the evaluation process. Article 7 of the Council Charter allows any species to present scientific research during their evaluation," Lisa replied calmly. "We invoke that right." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Lisa had done her homework. The article she mentioned was ancient and rarely used, but it was legitimate. Zeltaroff could not refuse without breaking the Council's own laws. "Very well," Zeltaroff said after a pause. "You have 1 standard hour to present your findings. Then we will proceed with the actual tests." Lisa walked to the center of the chamber and opened her briefcase. Inside was a simple Earth projector and a data crystal containing months of research. As she set up her equipment, she noticed council members exchanging glances. They expected her presentation to be as primitive as everything else about humanity. "Honorable council members," Lisa began, "my research team has discovered something." That will change how we understand galactic civilization. She activated the projector, and charts appeared in the air above her head. The first chart showed test scores for thousands of species over thousands of years. These are the official test results for every species evaluated by the Council. As you can see, most species score well in at least one category. Many score perfectly, nods around the chamber. This was basic information that everyone already knew. But here's what's interesting, Lisa continued. She switched to a new chart. These are the same species ranked by their actual achievements after joining galactic society. Scientific discoveries, artistic creations, technological innovations, social improvements. The new chart looked completely different from the first one. Species that had scored perfectly on the tests showed little or no progress over time. Species that had scored poorly showed dramatic growth and achievement. The correlation is negative, Greg said, stepping forward. High test scores predict low achievement. Low test scores predict high achievement. The relationship is mathematically precise. Whispers started spreading through the chamber. Some council members leaned forward to get a better look at the data. Rebecca activated her computer and projected a third chart. We've identified what we call the Adaptive Potential Index. Species that score poorly on council tests but show high rates of innovation and growth. These species consistently outperform their high-scoring counterparts over time. This is ridiculous, declared Speaker Vex of the Nexari Collective. The tests measure competency and advancement. How can failure predict success? Lisa smiled. This was the question she had been waiting for. Because the tests don't measure advancement, Speaker Vex. They measure conformity. She switched to a new presentation that showed the test categories in detail. The technology assessment rewards species that use standard galactic methods. It penalizes species that develop unique solutions. The military assessment favors conventional tactics over innovative strategies. The social structure test promotes centralized authority over distributed decision-making. These standards exist for good reasons, interrupted a tall alien with metallic skin. They represent the accumulated wisdom of galactic civilization. Do they? Lisa asked. She projected images of the galaxy's greatest achievements. The Wanderers, who created the most beautiful art in known space, failed the aesthetic evaluation. The Builders, who construct impossible architecture, failed the engineering assessment. The Seekers, who developed breakthrough transportation technology, failed the science test. More whispers. Some council members were looking uncomfortable. Now Greg stepped forward again. We've run probability analyses on 10,000 years of data. Species with high adaptive potential show a 93% chance of major breakthrough discoveries within their first century of galactic contact. Species with perfect test scores show only a 12% chance. The galaxy's greatest achievements, Rebecca added, have come from species that your tests classified as failures. Zeltaroth's glow was flickering now, like a candle in the hill. Winged. These accusations are baseless. The testing system has served the galaxy well for millennia. Has it? Lisa asked. She activated a new projection that made several council members gasp. The projection showed the extinction rates of different types of species. Species with high test scores had low extinction rates. Species with moderate scores had moderate extinction rates. But species with very low scores, combined with high adaptive potential, had an extinction rate of nearly 100%. 47 species over the past 5,000 years, Lisa said quietly. All of them showed the same pattern as humanity. All of them failed your tests, but demonstrated rapid innovation and growth. All of them mysteriously went extinct within a few centuries of evaluation. The chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens were shouting in dozens of languages. Some demanded explanations. Others accused Lisa of fabricating data. Zelteroth's voice cut through the noise like a blade. These claims are inflammatory and false. The extinct species you mention suffered natural disasters, did they? Kelly Brooks walked into the chamber, her spy equipment clearly visible. In her hands, she carried data crystals containing the stolen council files. Agent Brooks has infiltrated your data systems, Lisa announced. What she found will shock every member of this council. Kelly activated her projector and filled the chamber with communications between Vorthic leaders, messages planning the elimination of creative species, orders to cause natural disasters on specific worlds, lists of civilizations marked for destruction. The chamber fell silent as the evidence played out before them. Personal communications between Zelteroth and other Vorthic officials, planning genocide against any species that might challenge their dominance. This is fabricated, Zelteroth said, but his glow was fading rapidly. These are your own communications, Kelly replied, authenticated with your personal encryption codes. The same codes we used to access your secure data systems. The Dreamers, Lisa said, reading from the stolen files. Destroyed by an artificial black hole after showing signs of rapid technological advancement. The Seekers, eliminated by a bioweapon designed to target their specific physiology. The Builders, their homeworld shattered by controlled asteroid impacts. She looked directly at Zelteroth. And humanity, scheduled for elimination by gamma-ray burst after we demonstrated dangerous adaptive intelligence. During our first evaluation, the chamber exploded into chaos again. Representatives from different species were shouting accusations at each other. Some demanded immediate action against the Vorthic. Others called for a complete investigation of the Council's activities. But Zelteroth was not finished. His body began glowing brighter than ever before, and his voice boomed through the chamber. Enough! These accusations are treasonous. The humans have violated Council security and spread lies to undermine galactic stability. They must be eliminated. Immediately. Energy weapons appeared from hidden compartments around the chamber. Vorthic soldiers materialized from concealment, their crystal bodies blazing with destructive power. By the authority of the Galactic Council, Zelteroth declared, I order the immediate sterilization of the Sol system. But Jake Morrison was ready for this moment. He activated a communicator on his wrist and spoke a single word. Now. Across the solar system, human ships decloaked around the Council fleet. They had been hiding in plain sight for months, using primitive stealth technology that the aliens had never bothered to detect. Kinetic weapons and chemical explosives, too simple to register on sophisticated sensors, were suddenly pointed at every Council vessel. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Jake said calmly as he walked into the chamber. My ships have your fleet surrounded. One wrong move, and we turn your advanced vessels into space debris with old-fashioned Earth weapons. Zelteroth stared at the tactical display that appeared in front of him. Dozens of human ships had appeared from nowhere, their crude weapons locked onto Council vessels. Impossible, he whispered. Your technology is primitive. Exactly, Jack. 6 months after the confrontation in the Council chamber, Dr. Lisa Hayes stood in her new office and watched ships from dozens of species dock at the orbital station above Earth. The sight still amazed her. Just 2 years ago, humanity had been banned from galactic society. Now they were hosting the first meeting of the Adaptive Alliance. The changes had been faster and more dramatic than anyone expected. When the truth about the Vorthic conspiracy spread across the galaxy, it triggered a revolution in thinking that no one could have predicted. The Nexari Collective had been the first to change. For thousands of years, they had functioned as a perfect hive mind, with every individual thinking identical thoughts. But when they learned that diversity of thought was actually valuable, some Nexari began to think for themselves. The collective welcomed these individual minds instead of suppressing them. Rebecca. Stone walked into Lisa's office carrying a datapad. The quantum assembly just sent their latest report. They've started encouraging emotional decision-making alongside their logical processes. Their productivity has increased by 40% in the past month. Lisa shook her head in wonder. 6 months ago, they were the most rigid logical thinkers in the galaxy. Now they're writing poetry. Speaking of poetry, Rebecca said with a grin, the Eternal Assembly wants to collaborate with human artists on a new form of expression that combines energy patterns with music. The door chimed, and Greg Palmer entered with his arms full of data crystals. Sorry I'm late. I was analyzing the latest innovation reports from across the galaxy. What did you find? Lisa asked. In the 6 months since the Alliance was formed, galactic civilization has produced more new discoveries than in the previous 600 years. New art forms, breakthrough technologies, revolutionary social structures. It's like the entire galaxy woke up from a long sleep. Lisa felt a warm glow of satisfaction. This was what she had dreamed of during those long nights of research. Not just freedom for humanity, but liberation for every creative mind in the galaxy. Admiral Jake Morrison appeared on the wall screen from his new position as head of Alliance security. Lisa, we have a situation developing in the Outer Rim. 3 former Council species are reporting unusual energy readings from previously dead star systems. What kind of energy readings? Lisa asked. The kind that suggests those systems aren't as dead as the Council claimed. Kelly's investigation teams think we might have found some of the extinct species that were supposedly eliminated. Lisa felt her heart skip a beat. Are you saying some of them survived? That's what we're hoping to find out. The first expedition launches tomorrow. Want to come along? Lisa looked at Rebecca and Greg. Both of them nodded immediately. We wouldn't miss it, Lisa said. The next day found them aboard the exploration ship New Horizon, traveling toward a star system that had been listed as sterile in Council records for over 2,000 years. The system had supposedly been destroyed by a natural gamma-ray burst, eliminating a species called the Singers. Captain Tom Wilson, the ship's commander, was a former commercial pilot who had volunteered for the dangerous mission of searching for lost civilizations. Sensors are picking up structured signals from the third planet, definitely artificial. Are they responding to our communications? Lisa asked. Not yet, but the signals are getting stronger as we approach. As the New Horizon entered orbit around the planet, they could see lights on the night side, cities that glowed with soft, harmonious patterns. This world was very much alive. How is this possible? Greg wondered. The Council records show the system was completely destroyed. Kelly. Brooks had the answer. I've been analyzing Vorthic records since the trial. They didn't actually destroy most of the worlds on their elimination list. They just erased them from galactic maps and communication networks. As far as the rest of the galaxy knew, these species had vanished. But why keep them alive? Rebecca asked. Insurance, Kelly replied. If their cover was ever blown, they could point to these surviving worlds and claim the eliminations were just communication errors, not genocide. The first contact with the Singers was unlike anything humans had experienced before. The aliens communicated through complex harmonies that could convey emotions, concepts, and entire stories in minutes of music. When they learned that the galaxy believed them extinct, their songs became a mixture of joy and sorrow that brought tears to the eyes of every human listener. Over the following weeks, more lost civilizations were discovered. The dreamers had survived on a hidden moon, creating art so beautiful that it changed the way humans understood color and form. The builders had constructed magnificent cities in asteroid fields, their architecture defying every known law of physics. Each discovery reinforced what Lisa's team had learned. The species marked for elimination were the galaxy's greatest treasures. Their unique perspectives and abilities were exactly what galactic civilization needed to grow and thrive. The reunion of these lost species with the galaxy was an event that historians would study for millennia. The singers' music inspired new forms of mathematical expression that revolutionized physics. The dreamers' art techniques led to breakthroughs in materials science. The builders' architecture showed new ways to manipulate space and time. But the most important change was philosophical. The galaxy had learned that there was no single right way to think, to live, or to understand the universe. Diversity wasn't just tolerable, it was essential. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, who had become humanity's chief diplomat, stood before the first Adaptive Alliance Assembly and addressed representatives from over 500 species. We gather today not as separate civilizations competing for resources and dominance, but as different notes in a galactic symphony. Each of us brings unique strengths. Each of us has something to teach and something to learn. The applause that followed came in dozens of forms. Some species clapped with hands or tentacles. Others created light patterns or harmonic resonances. The singers wove all the sounds together into a melody that captured the hope and excitement of the moment. Zel Tarath and the other Vorthic leaders were not present. They had been exiled to a remote world where they could live out their lives in isolation. Some had argued for harsher punishment, but humanity had insisted on mercy. The galaxy was moving beyond cycles of revenge toward something better. A year later, Lisa stood in the same spot where she had first failed the Council's tests. But now the chamber was filled with representatives working together on joint projects. A team of humans and Nexari were developing new communication technologies. Quantum assembly logicians were collaborating with dreamer artists to create impossible sculptures. The builders were working with human engineers to design cities that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Lieutenant Amy Morrison, Jake's daughter, had become the first human to captain a multi-species exploration vessel. Her crew included beings from 12 different worlds, all working together to explore regions of space that had never been mapped. The universe is so much bigger than we imagined, Amy told Lisa during one of her reports from the Galactic Rim. We found evidence of civilizations that existed before the Council, species so advanced they transcended physical form entirely, and they all had one thing in common. What's that? Lisa asked. They celebrated differences instead of fearing them. They built societies where being unique was considered the highest virtue. Lisa smiled as she ended the communication. Amy's words reminded her of something she had discovered in the deepest archives of galactic history. The very first civilizations to achieve interstellar travel had all been diverse, chaotic, and impossible to categorize. It was only later, as bureaucracy and standardization took hold, that progress had slowed. The galaxy was returning to its roots, rediscovering the power of creative chaos that had driven its early expansion. And at the center of this renaissance was a small blue world whose people had failed every test except the one that mattered most, the test of whether they would accept the boundaries others tried to impose on them. Rebecca found Lisa in her favorite observation deck, watching the stars. Any regrets? She asked. About what? About revealing the truth. About changing everything. Some people say the galaxy was more stable under the old system. Lisa thought about that for a moment. Stable isn't always good. A statue is stable, but it never grows. A tree bends with the wind, but it reaches toward the stars. She pointed toward a distant nebula where new stars were being born. The universe itself isn't stable. It's constantly changing, constantly creating something new. The old council tried to freeze galactic civilization in place. We just reminded everyone that growth requires change. And change requires chaos, Rebecca added. Controlled chaos, Lisa corrected. The kind that comes from millions of different minds working on the same problems from completely different angles. As if to prove her point, a message came through from the research station orbiting Alpha Centauri, a joint team of human physicists and singer harmonicists had just discovered a new fundamental force of nature by combining mathematics with music. Their breakthrough would revolutionize faster than light, travel, and make the galaxy smaller than ever before. The irony wasn't lost. On Lisa, humanity had been rejected from galactic society for thinking differently. Now their D